Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
And one.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and John and LJ Pena. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey.
Yeah. You know.
Hey, Jay. Jay's here.
We're all here, spending lots of time, I'm sure all of us today, going over rules. Isn't
Just
that,
a wee bit of time.
I'm sure LJ probably more than most of us, but
Yeah. For those that don't know, LJ is one of the foreign moderators for the rules forums.
Yes,
So-
always two there are. I'm not alone anymore. Seth has come out of the shadows and joined me over the last 2 months, which is awesome and supremely helpful. We actually had kind of all hands on deck today, obviously, as you would expect, taking the traffic as it came in and answering questions related to the new rules. A lot of them were, hey, that works the way that you read it worked, yes, which is awesome. And there were a couple of things we were able to catalog as well. Basically, anytime you see a post that says this will be amended in a future update or something like that means it'll probably be changed by the end of this week, which is awesome for turnaround time.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I saw that with the like Gunslinger was an obvious one where the original version didn't mention anything about ranged attacks, which seems like an obvious oversight. There's a couple other things like that. There's nothing about not being able to activate units with face down tokens, as far as I can tell.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but everybody's a Dark Trooper now.
Okay.
All good.
Ayo.
Yeah, I figured that was something that likely
Super Dark
got
Trooper.
changed for Dark Troopers instead of putting it like in the unstoppable entry, and then it just kind of
Got overlooked.
right. So clearly that is not probably
when you put
supposed to be a thing.
1,000 so nerds to start combing through this,
Yeah.
like the ravaging, insane people we are,
yeah. If you
we're
ever,
gonna find the little things.
right, if you ever
I
want
had
something
mentioned that
truly
to Jay
proofread.
earlier.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised that it took 2.5 hours for somebody to find something. As far as I'm concerned, that was a good sign. You know, you didn't crack it open immediately and be like, "Oh crap, Legion is spelled wrong."
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Well, I still haven't like actually gone through the entire thing because we had to, there's an article out which I tried to summarize most of the changes, but of course the blog team and the rest of the Fifth Trooper team helping to just like comb through everything and try and find all the changes. So and of course the kids, I'm sure you had a similar experience today, LJ. I know you got kids, but like they're off today, school's off today. So I've got like kids running around. I'm trying to like type up this article. I'm trying to comb through this RG to see like what's actually different. I'm trying to like get forum rulings on stuff that is ambiguous so that because I want to make sure I don't get it wrong in the article too. Spreading bad information and all that. So yeah, it was definitely an eventful day, but now we have you here live to talk to you. So
I did it. I made it.
yeah, a man very in demand today. So before we get to the meat of the episode, we're not going to do housekeeping today because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. But do you want to just talk about, you are the TO for LVO and it is not the head judge, it's like a consular now, is that a thing?
The head consular.
Head consular.
Yes.
Okay, that is
fancy title.
Very fancy. The head consular for world championships. So do you want to just talk about those two events real quick, how they're formatted? If anything from today is going to affect them, etc.
Yes, so I definitely know it's that, especially for LVO, which is coming up here real quick, but I know a lot of folks want to know for Worlds as well. There is definitely going to have to be a small amount of evaluation for the packets as written for both of those events. I know for LVO specifically, the changes, if any, are going to be very, very, very minimal. But what I want to stress before I say anything else for both events is that always, always, always look at the event packets for those events first and use those as your primary source of rules if there is a conflict. So for example, one of the first questions I got today is, hey, are you going to use the random round time thing for Legion at LVO? And, that's the first thing I said. If there's a conflict, just look at the packet. The packet says these are the round times. Those are going to be the around times, just because, especially for LVO, it's so weird because signups for that was in what, June, July, over
Yeah.
6 months ago. You know, people bought tickets with a certain expectation, so I do my best to kind of keep that expectation at that level throughout the entire year and try not to change the events up and down throughout the course. And this close to the event, that's something that I definitely don't want to affect it. So for LVO, you can expect the same format we were planning on running, 3 rounds a day, and then the 2 side events, unconventional on Saturday, doubles on Sunday. You've got 3 rounds on Friday for the main event, 2-1s or better advance to Saturday, 3 more rounds on Saturday. The top 8 should be, depending on how numbers fall, but it's usually going to be top 8 advance to Sunday, and then those 8 players play another 3 rounds till you get a final winner. So the core structure and the time format, as far as I'm concerned, that has not changed in the slightest. I don't think anybody's going to be calling each other consular at LVO, but I do encourage our players to still use the judges as intended. In the document, they are very clear about, hey, these people are here to make sure your games continue moving and stuff. So there are those parts of the document that I think will positively affect LVO, which is awesome. The one that is kind of like teetering for me at the moment has definitely got to be the tiebreaker stuff. You know, we have some new things in the document related to wins, losses, and ties. And then we also have different tiebreakers. So, you know, game uplink, which is what we're using for LVO and we should be using for Worlds as well, is currently set and locked and loaded at kind of a standard quote unquote strength of schedule setup. You know, strength of schedule, extended strength of schedule, those are the tiebreakers that we're planning on using. At this time, I don't necessarily expect that to change for LVO, but you know, and Jay might even be able to speak to this a little, or I'll probably talk to Keegan, I'm sure, a lot about it. But you know, I don't want to jump the gun on that if game uplink isn't quite ready. And so I think at the moment I'm expecting it. I know that if I'm going to change anything, I think I have to make that call by the end of the week at the very, very, very latest. But like, I would say by Wednesday, so people have a week or so to digest that as they finalize and submit their list leading up to the event. So I think from my perspective, those lingering questions are going to try to be answered by the end of the week. And then I think you'll probably see Worlds follow a lot of the same patterns as far as those questions are concerned anyway.
Yeah, I'm from a game uplink perspective. We are very much on it. You know, our goal I had a meeting with them today. Our goal is very much to have that available. So, you know, I think that is an option, barring any tragedy. But we have the regular SOS in, and we're shooting very hard to have this new system implemented for LVO, but definitely for Adepticon, it'll for sure be done by then.
And you know, without spoiling too much, because I know not everybody might have looked into the changes, Kyle or John, would one of you want to speak to the reason why some of these tiebreakers might affect your list building choices?
Yeah, so 2 things. Blue player no longer wins ties, I think is the biggest thing.
Yes.
Ties.
It's actually almost strictly red player. Almost.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's whoever bids less, whoever has
Bring out the
spent more
hat,
points
John.
in their list.
Where's the hat, John?
I know. I don't have that hat. Is dying.
Red
I mean,
players.
I think.
Great.
I mean, honestly, I think in a situation where like, I mean, it's weird because it's not actually tied to blue red, so it's a little bit hard to wrap your mind around. But if there's a situation where like your opponent's battle deck is going to be similar to yours, it's, I think, objectively better to just be red player in that situation because you get to pick table side
and you win the tie.
You get the last vetoes, and assuming your opponent is the one picking because they have the bid, you also win ties. Because it's not tied to red player, it is tied to whoever has spent less points. So if one person has 800 points, one person has 795. Whoever has spent 800 points wins ties for points destroyed. So you don't get to decide who that is. That's just like an automatic thing. So it's interesting. I think personally, for my own personal list building, I had already kind of started integrating speeders into all my lists because of the previous red blue changes. And I think this just kind of like, I mean, I would never want to take a list that had Sab Vaps in it anymore. Maybe that means after this that Sab Vaps needs to get changed to make it so that the actual victory point portion of the objective is more interesting. I think that'd be fine, but it definitely makes it hard to run a defensive list.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if it how much it actually factors into people's bids if it is used here in a couple weeks. I was always kind of a red player leaning person myself, so it didn't particularly phase me when I saw it improving, but I did ask like, hey, this is the intent, and how do you feel about this? And I kind of wanted to start that discussion a little bit. I was happy where things went because I don't think it's actually going to negatively affect where we were going in the short term. And I'm hoping that what we see basically is there's some sort of like longer term outcome this is shooting towards. That's what I think would be the most ideal state, because I'm hoping we do maybe reverse course a little bit from some of the bids creeping up and up and up over the last couple months. But as long as there's like something that we're shooting for at the end of the tunnel, I think that would be it'd be nice to have like that kind of conversation or hear that kind of like chatter versus why that change was made. Maybe AMG just hates bids.
I mean, if
maybe they wanted to see the current meta suffer. I don't know.
Well,
so I would love
if
to
they
have
hate
that
bids,
discussion.
Increase the cost of HRUs. That's the biggest component of
Hey.
bids right now. But
we're coming
anyway.
for you next, HRUs.
Yeah, it's funny. When we came on, LJ asked if my scarf was a prop. Combined with the snowy Hoth background, I am actually just cold. I've been using this background for the last couple months. As our listeners know, I've been playing Blizzard, and probably will continue to until morale improves. But yeah, I'm actually cold. The scarf is not a prop, just for those wondering.
Let's see. I was trying to think if there's anything else. There is one other immediate change that will go into effect at LVO, because I think this is a CRB thing, but it was something I actually picked up while I was reading the OP doc, and I don't know if you guys picked this up yet, but I did notice we did have a little bit of a change related to hidden information that was part of this change today. Command cards are still full hidden information, as one would expect and hope, but battle cards are not anymore.
Sorry,
So I had
been, while I go edit the article.
Yeah, I had been asked some questions about that when I did Outriders on Saturday, and while we were recording it, I was like, because I was trying to hold on to those to talking about that until after today. But yeah, that was actually one of the things I picked up on when I was looking at the OP doc initially, was that that battle cards were not hidden information anymore, which I think is fascinating.
Well, that would be in the rule book, right? Not the OP doc?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was like there was a blurb or something in the OP doc that turned my brain onto it when I was doing the initial proofing. But yeah, that was one that I noticed that I think we were talking about people submitting their lists at the time for the event, and then of course having a printed copy, because even though Game Uplink shows you those very nicely and et cetera, it's still nice to have the physical copy for you, your opponent. People aren't staring at their phones, and God forbid the internet or Game Uplink or something goes down. We still have the complete. Yeah, I know.
I'd like to say a couple of things here. I would like to encourage people to stare at their phones on Game Uplink.
Calm down.
And Game Uplink won't be going down. Those are the two things I'd like to say.
I'm sure it won't. But yes, we like to have that information physically on hand. So I was thinking about it. for LVO, and that's one that, yeah, when you do your printed list for you and your opponent, that's actually something you should include, because that'll be part of the turn zero process moving forward.
Yeah, you look at your opponent's battle cards when you decide whether you're red or blue to see if they're similar to yours or not.
You know, I have to say though, since we moved to the 4-card system and looking at other people's lists, if you play enough, that's never a real like it was. I mean, the only
It's not
thing,
usually a surprise.
no, the
No,
objectives, you'd
not
be like, oh,
usually.
I know what he's got. But sure, deployments, you could probably get shocked if somebody threw in a random one, but just on a person's list, you had a real good idea of what they were running.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
So
Let's see I'm trying to think if there was anything else, Kyle, anything specifically from the OP doc related to LVO that was lingering on your mind before I jump to Worlds.
Yeah, so here's a question, LJ. I brought this up
Yes, Kyle.
before. Well, Kyle, I'm asking. It's
I have
this
no
is
more questions
this
anyway.
is my
So
podcast.
This is the
too.
podcast now.
I do whatever I want. In the document, there are a lot of verbiage around players using substitutions for measurement tools, tokens, even bases, as long as the TO or EO, they call it, the EO and the player agree, and that it's the same measurements and size and everything else as the the original components. Is that something that will be in effect for LVO? So for instance, if I wanted to put clear bases on my on my army instead of the Legion bases, as long as it's the same measurements, right? That is a legal product.
Yes, so that is something that we had actually allowed in the past before. So luckily, it's an easy one for us to thumbs up because it's not too different than LVO's operated in the past. But no, I'm glad you reminded me about all of the legal components, because yes, I do think the legality of your game components and being able to bring custom game components got a little easier with the OP document, which is great. As far as anything related to, or that could be related to, a miniature conversion. So changing the base, trying to use a proxy, adding on extra plastic to a different miniature, or doing head swaps, stuff like that. If anybody has those kind of questions, we ask that you send those to the LVO Legion event at gmail.com email, because that's where Nima, the head consular, will evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. So we really aren't necessarily worried about your game components. You don't send us pictures of like your cool fifth trooper order tokens, for example. Or your other tokens and whatnot. Those are all pretty straightforward, as long as you can reasonably tell what they're meant to be. But for your miniatures, yes, you should continue to send those into the LVO Legion event email, because that's where the head judge approves them. And then we have kind of like a running record of what we've approved and whatnot. So if there is some sort of genuine issue during the event, we just look at the big list of things we approved and move on with our lives. It really, like, LVO has been known for the opposite of restrictive. It's the same event that had the all Wookiee army with the Wookiees riding on Tauntauns and the Wookiee with the lightsaber and the Wookiee core troopers, rocking across the board. We've always like really prided ourselves on being able to work within the bounds and restrictions of the rules, and run with what was called TO's preference, or TO's approval. And I think that is very much still alive in this new organized play document. I was very happy to see a good amount of the verbiage transfer over from one document to another. Yes, you can still have your custom stuff. Yes, you can still do head swaps and add on plastic and whatnot. If you're at an official event or Worlds, which we'll probably talk about in a minute, you should probably have official plastic. But I mean, duh. Would you really expect to come to their World Championship and have an all 3D printed army and they'd be like, great,
No.
You know,
Yeah.
come on.
And I mean, it's in there, you know, it's just
Yeah.
like a majority of it has to be Asmodee, America miniature parts from Star Wars Legion, you know, but you could do other stuff. You can't customize a miniature such a way that any part of the miniature represents other intellectual property, right? The
Mhm.
reason this is important at Worlds is they're going to be streaming, and you know, it's really important to them that it's Star Wars and it's their product, right?
This
And
is my
so,
Jean-Luc Picard I'm using for Yoda.
yeah, right. No Space Marines for your
no
empire.
Legos,
Yeah,
apparently,
right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing that people have done.
Oh yeah, that was at the Cano Bite tournament up
Mhm.
here. Somebody had Tauntaun and Legos. That's so good. All right, let's talk about Worlds real quick so we can
I
get
had
on
one more
to...
question with OP Doc.
All right.
You mentioned tiebreakers are in flux, based, but what about draws?
So I think for now, because draws are part of their own, like they're part of the new scoring system of a win is worth this much, loss worth this much, draws worth this much. I think it's the same thing for now. Until we integrate both of those parts, I think we're gonna have to leave the other one behind for now.
Okay.
That'll be one of those things that if we're gonna use it, we have to make an announcement sometime between Wednesday to Friday.
I'm
So-
But no,
pretty
that's
confident.
another important
If I
one.
may
So
say,
related question.
very confident you're going to be able to make that announcement.
Good.
Okay, so for LVO,
Yes.
if draws are not a thing, how are you handling the blue player no longer wins ties thing? Because that's what essentially enables draws to be a thing.
I think like I said, I think it's all part of the same package. I think if we don't, then we're probably gonna have to work something that works around that part of the restriction. I don't think we're not going to use those. I do feel pretty, Jay feels pretty confident, so I feel pretty confident.
Okay.
But like, you know, covering all bases just in case for some reason some massive thing came up or Nima sends me a message after this airs and is like, "You said what?"
Well, it's pretty hard to
Surprisingly,
get a draw, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
It would be
is,
very
like,
difficult.
You have to be
Yeah.
equal on victory points and equal on bid.
You'd have to
I-
both
I-
be equal on bid. Yeah.
Yes, I think an LVO is the only thing where I have seen a true draw happen once in the last like 3. So I mean, I guess to
Right.
actually answer the question, we would just have to break out Loop and Chewy. That is the
That seems
tiebreaker to end all
appropriate. Yeah.
tiebreakers. So, or you know, we could do our favorite thing and flip a coin. I know everybody loves when we do that.
Loop and Chewy sounds more fun.
I agree. Much better, especially when everybody has alcohol.
Yeah.
So Worlds, Jay.
Please.
Yes.
Worlds. Okay, so Worlds looks weirdly similar to the Las Vegas Open. Huh. About that.
Weird.
So John Griffin is the TO for that one. He's somebody who has helped with Vegas Opens and you know I work with and whatnot. And so when I talked to him as his head judge, you know, we were kind of looking at, we had to first look at, you know, how many people we have or that have indicated that they're gonna show up. And so we kind of had to work backwards from day 3 all the way through, you know, LCQ and kind of find a couple different formats that would work depending on where the numbers landed. So we came up with like 3 different things. And then one, you know, basically the plan that fit best with the number of people that said they were coming was the LVO structure. We looked like we were going to have a little under 128 people if invites continued the way that they were going to be, and so far they've held true. So what we decided to do for Worlds is that we would do a last chance qualifier that's going to be 3 rounds. Minimum of 4 people advance. That's on Thursday. What is that? The 23rd. 3 rounds, minimum 4 people advance, but essentially, just like last time, you know, Mr. Number 13 over here at the last chance qualifier in 2019, we'll basically take the number of people we need to fill up the spots. Awesome. And then we'll probably tell like the 2 people after that to be on standby just in case somebody didn't make it at the last minute. So last chance qualifier day, pretty much your regular standard strength schedule tournament. 3 rounds, we take the top people that get in to fill the spots. Nice and easy. If we have 128 people play, anywhere between 114 to 128. That means there'll be 16 undefeated by the end of round 3. Again, I know the packet says that we're going to take 4 at a minimum. At this point in time, I'm fairly confident that we will use all 16 of those people that go undefeated. I have a really good feeling about it just based on where the numbers have been landing, and then there might be a couple people that make it in on tiebreakers. That gets us into day 1 of Worlds. Boom, we're finally here. It's Worlds, and at a Worlds, you can't do travel groups. It's too prestigious to have like some sort of free buy where you can pick somebody, and again, I can't police every single group and know where every single person that comes to Worlds is from,
Ooh,
especially with how
that.
international it is,
I got that for you.
I'm sure you have an indication of it, yes, but I don't want to have to worry about it.
Purchase the property in Buffalo.
I've got the location that all the qualifiers were at.
And so the kind of the bottom line was that we wanted to be able to do something that allowed those really interesting round 1 matchups to happen. And Kyle, I know you're familiar with what I'm talking about. But also
yes.
that it did not totally kill the hype for those players to make it into the next day. And so we ended up settling on a 2-1 system. All 2-1s or better make it to day 2, just like LVO. So you're gonna see,
one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really think I've seen anybody that's been mad at that kind of thing. So, for those of us who aren't looking at, SwissTriangle.com, if you run a 128 person tournament for 3 rounds, you'll be left with 64, exactly half your field, that have a 2-1 or better record. It's perfect for a tournament, and I think the minimum number that you need to hit that, I thought, was 114 was what I remember. So as long as you're in between that bracket of 14 players, you can achieve this, and we should be very able to hit that with what we're doing. So then all 2-1s advance to day 2 of Worlds, which is Saturday. And that day, it's win or go home. 3 more rounds, win or go home. However, we did something a little different for Worlds than we're doing for LVO. Worlds, Adepticon specifically, has to close by a certain time that is earlier. It's 4 p.m., much earlier than LVO has to close on Sunday. So what we decided to do, because the other option was to not do the 2-on-1 format and just do straight cuts all throughout Worlds, was that we would do a 4th shadow round on Saturday night. A shadow round, if you've never heard of the term before, is basically you have a round that only a specific cut of people play. And in this case, it'll be the top 8. And only the top 8 will play 1 more round. The rest of the 64 field, they can do whatever they want that afternoon. Those people will play 1 more game, and then the top 4 will go on to Sunday, and just like we're doing the last day of LVO, then those people will play 2 more games until we have a final winner for Worlds. So that's basically the same format, but we take that 1 round from Sunday, transpose it to the end of the day Saturday. For the people that are staying, the judge crew is going to get them food. We will provide refreshments and nourishment so they can continue to play at their best. I know we're going to end.
You heard it here. Top 8 gets free dinner.
Yes, no, I mean, look, guys, I get a small salary for helping with Adepticon. I'm more than happy to spend that money for you guys to be able to play, especially because I'm the one that came up with the idea that has them stuck playing for another 3 hours. Look, guys, we did 5 rounds at LVO 2019. It sucks.
Yeah.
I know what 4 round days feel like I know what 5 round days feel like. So like, I'm more than happy to do something a little, fun for the people that are staying, because they're celebrating the hobby and this tournament, this championship. So that's the least we could do as organizers to help them out. But yeah, so that Saturday, like I said, we'll feed into Sunday. We'll play a couple more rounds, and then we'll have a final winner, hopefully around the 3 o'clock Chicago time hour, and then everybody will go home, and we will have had a successful Worlds.
I'm very excited about the Portillo's that has been promised potentially.
Hey, that was all John. I can't No, I mean, he suggested, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like a perfect thing to do
Dude,
for
so
for
good.
something like this.
Now,
Yeah,
I'm like, that's what I'm playing for. Like, I'm playing for
Yeah.
the Portillos,
like,
you know?
I'm playing
Kyle
the
took
free
us.
food.
Kyle took us there last year. Oh my god,
Uh-huh.
I'd never been
Yep.
there before. I'm like, I was telling Rachel
Oh.
all about it because she had to leave the day before. I'm like, dude, we gotta go. Like, we're going. Like it's happening. I'd like to just add, we didn't talk about this, but our friend David Zelenka will be live streaming LVO on his Twitch channel. That's Yavin Base. I'm gonna put links and stuff on here, and we'll talk about it on our Facebook page and stuff. But yes, so make sure you go subscribe to David's channel. That is Yavin Base on Twitch. I think it would be good for you to be subscribed to that and be watching what he's putting out, especially for LVO and beyond. So
Yeah, I'm really excited for the LVO chatter. Obviously, we've got a lot that we're going to be playing with that's new to the community and whatnot. So I can't wait for that to be on display. Frontline did kind of a cool thing this year where they took all of the streamers and got all their links and all their details early, and it's pinned in the Legion Discord. I believe David shared it as well, but there's basically a single page where you can go and you can view all of the Las Vegas Open streams,
That's
and
pretty cool.
open all of the different things. So like if I'm a Age Sigmar player, I can scroll down the list and be like, oh wait, there's also this other game I'm interested in called Star Wars Legion, and they can get hooked right into the stream with
Yeah.
David, which will be really, really cool for helping to grow his scene and obviously our scene as well. Yeah, no, that's going to be a big part of LVO, and of course, it's a huge part of Worlds. For the first Worlds, we had some really fun streams with Alex and Luke and a couple guest hosts like myself. That was an amazing opportunity. So I hope we'll be able to do something similar at Worlds and maybe get a couple of the AMG folks on, and of course,
Yeah.
our favorite guests from across the community. I'm sure you guys will all make appearances and. We'll see
Hopefully we
lots of
won't.
friends.
Hopefully we'll
Well,
be playing the whole
hopefully you
time.
won't.
well, I
How
will.
many people? How
I'm
many
not
people
playing.
from? I was gonna say, how many people from the
Yeah.
Fifth Trooper have infights and are playing at Worlds?
All but me.
All but you. So how many is that, Jay? I can't keep
How
track
many
your
is
empire
that?
anymore.
Okay, I can't even tell you.
I was
don't
gonna
know.
say because you have. Is it greater or less than 8? Because eventually you will
think it's
have to eat
around
each
8.
other to get to
It's
the top.
around 8. I think
It's approximately, yeah. I
it's
think it's more.
okay.
I think it's actually more than 8.
I think it's like
So
10 or
you're-
12, but
So
it's,
you're
Yeah.
saying there's a dice rolls chance that the top 8 could all be Fifth Trooper. Gotcha.
I'm going to make a bold prediction right now that I'll say at least at least top 4 of the top 8 will be Fifth Trooper.
All right, 50%, Fifth Trooper.
50%
A million years, Fifth Trooper.
in
Got
the
it.
top will be Fifth Trooper, and I'll say
No pressure.
I'm going to say 66% is going to be Fifth Trooper. No, I think it's going to be 80% is going to be Fifth Trooper. I think it's going to be 6 or 7 in the top 8.
All right, hell yeah, brother. There we
So
No pressure.
that's a
Fifth
lot of
Trooper
avoidance.
fans.
That's a lot of avoidance of random
That
team
is
kills, even if we
statistically
also
an
somehow all
insane-
win.
Yep.
Jay's like sitting back there in the background. He's the man behind the sheet of game uplink. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whoa, weird how that
John
keeps
versus
working
Kyle. I
out.
don't think so.
If you see any last minute GitHub changes to game uplink, just
Yeah.
so you know.
Yeah. Oh man.
Keegan is like, hey Jay, I don't remember putting this code in there. What does this do? Oh,
Shut
that's
up, Keegan.
don't
That's
worry
what
about it.
does.
Don't worry about it. It's nothing.
Why does it say Fifth Trooper overall? Yeah.
Just says end game. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Everything's fine.
I'm trying to think. There's no real other like big format things. I will say that you will probably see the changes we were talking about earlier to the OP document. Again, the goal is to have them in at LVO so we can have that large scale test before Worlds. Those things I'm sure will be ready in time for Worlds at the very least if a hiccup occurred before LVO. I already said the time and that part of the schedule, that's already in the doc and that's already been approved by AMG OP. So like that part definitely is not changing. We're already locked that in as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. For everybody but Fifth Trooper, who I guess won't be making it into the top 8, on Saturday, there will be unconventional warfare, similar to the Saturday of LVO. There's this unconventional warfare side event, and on Sunday there is a doubles 2-rounder. Again, same thing as LVO. So Worlds does have some side events. There's the Onderon Onyx campaign is there again, which is a fun little side thing that a community member likes to run. There will probably be some other things that will pop up. There'll be some open demo tables ran by AMG for dynamic exits and natural resources. Those are both those were ticketed things that you could hop into that I saw. And I mean, you're at Adepticon. There's a million other things to do. There'll be Shatterpoint demos if you are interested in such things, as well as a million other games and things you could get into. It's one of my favorite parts of Adepticon is when I go to it and I'm like, wait, that has like a game community for this side game that I've only ever been able to play with like a friend, and there's like a 40-person tournament for it here. Like there's always like games like that and things that you can hop into and demos you can do and whatnot. So it's got a ton of opportunity at Adepticon. Always excited to go to, the mecca of tournaments for me anyway.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I think that's all good. Check out the streams if you haven't signed up for. I don't think you can sign up for anything. So I think it's all close. So be at Adepticon if you got your ticket. If you got in the last chance, we hope you make it. There'll be streams. Everything's going to be great. Let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's talk about what we really came here to talk about. The new rules changes.
Yeah.
The core rule book. You know what one of my favorite things is, Jay? Actually, no, John. You know what one of my favorite things is, John?
Uh-oh.
TLAs, otherwise known as 3-letter acronyms. Core Rule Book.
Oh my, that's what it stands for. This whole day, I'm like, why are we saying CRB everywhere?
But it's only 2 words, LJ.
No, it's Core Rule Book.
What are you talking about, John? I thought you military guys like your acronyms.
I hate acronyms.
I'm pretty sure he had confessed that to me once, which is why I singled him out. But no, CRB. At its base, before we get into literally anything else, I just want to say that like I'm super happy to finally have this thing see the light of day. I got to be greatly involved with it in the recent months.
You sure you want to admit that before we talk about it?
I will, because my name's on it. I can't hide from it anymore. If you look at proofreading, it says me and Seth are right there. I am more than happy because at like I said, before we say anything else about it, at its base, we have a rule book that is a rule book, not a keyword reference guide. Yeah. But if I gave this rule book to somebody that knew nothing about Legion, I feel like they could read it and navigate the pretty pictures and the examples to learn the basics of how to play the game. And at its base level, it should at least do that. And I think it accomplishes that. Transposing a 90-page keyword index to a rulebook format is not an easy task. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And I mean, it's been over a year of work on it to get it to that point. But the fact that, again, it starts by reading as a rule book where you open the pages and you follow them to learn how to do things and actually play the game, it's wonderful. And it's going to be so much easier to edit it and update it and get any fixes or future changes to stuff in it and have them get in right away.
All right, I've had enough of the propaganda. All right,
yeah,
let's talk.
You knew what you were getting into.
Let's dig into this.
I'm excited, and that's the thing that I get excited about. Okay,
one of the things. Let's go. What do you want to talk about first, Kyle? So Kyle wrote a wonderful article, by the way, that's on the blog post, so you guys can all read that.
You should go read that as you're listening.
Yeah.
If your mind can comprehend such things. I can't always multitask.
I usually listen to podcasts while I'm driving, so I think that would be probably not a good idea for people that do that sort of thing.
I'm not going to tell them how to live their life.
Yeah, I mean, all right. So I do have some specific topics I want to hit, but it's possible that some of them will be hit in this fashion. If you had to pick like So you've obviously answered a lot of forum rules today.
Mhm.
If you had to pick one thing that is not obvious from reading the rules that is answered in a forum topic, what would it be?
Ooh, I didn't realize I would have a timed question to immediately start. Um, no, I feel like I feel like I do have something set aside for this. I think honestly, we're still kind of feeling ourselves into this change. But I do think that the way that terrain is defined is going to hurt an experienced player's brain for a second and then kind of made you realize that you were taught wrong from the start. And that leads me to
Bold statement.
impassable terrain. Because it always happened when I was explaining and answering questions to people that something that is impassable, you cannot pass through, as per the word, right? And impassable still meant that you could climb on top of it.
Because it
And
was
that
like a
all,
vertical surface, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Impassable just meant you couldn't phase through it. And that was how I explained it. You couldn't phase through it. That seemed to make sense to a lot of people's brains. But now with impassable terrain, it is Gandalf saying you cannot pass this terrain. And instead, you have to now define it in a different way. And I think that way that we're going to talk about terrain, people are going to have to, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but it'll be easier for people that are newer rather than people that knew the rules really well, because we taught ourselves this kind of weird way that it didn't necessarily make sense when you explained it to people that were new to the game, or at least that's the problem I was always having. So now you've got obstacle terrain, and you've got impassable terrain. You've got these kind of newer categories that we hadn't necessarily used before. Some familiar things like difficult and open, those things still save. And I think that's one of the things that it's going to improve your Legion gameplay greatly when you can look at a table and be like, and use those terms fluently.
So what are some examples of things that, like, if you were rolling up to a table, you're about to play a Legion game,
Yeah.
things that you would proactively call impassable terrain?
I think you could probably look at maybe an unwieldy piece of terrain. Maybe you had like a rock formation that you couldn't really put miniatures on. That's something that you could deem to be an impassable piece. Or I know I have these little acid pools that I like to use that if you treated it as a little pillbox, basically, that's something that you couldn't phase through, but you could reasonably clamber and move on top of it if you wanted to. Now that's something that I could say, no, that is impassable. And that way it kind of helps delineate it as something that you just simply cannot move through or over or on top of to begin with, which I think again helps add a little bit of variety to like what you're doing as you explain terrain on your tables.
So with impassable, quick control F on the CRB tells me that impassable, the only things that can move through impassable would be repulsors and jump units.
Right.
And not even the bomb cart that previously could fly over Endor trees. Not even the bomb cart can move through impassable terrain.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that the bomb cart also cannot move over obstacle terrain. Is that accurate? It no longer flies, basically.
So it basically cannot freely move over height 9,000 terrain.
What about height 1 terrain?
Yeah.
So it doesn't just freely float over everything anymore. Which I mean, I guess there are reasons why I liked it because it made your cart path easier, but reasons why I didn't like it, because when I explained it to people, they were like, okay, well, I didn't even think about that because that doesn't make any sense to me. Why is this cart going over buildings and stuff like that? So that's one that I personally like. I feel like I'm gonna have to play a couple times to see how I feel about. you know, it's one of the things that might, you know, it's going to affect each player in a different way, because there's different paths each player has to consider when you're looking at the board and what way you're going to be oriented and what terrain you can pick and stuff. So I feel like I've got to get a feel for it before I really make a call. I think the list that liked it before still probably like it just fine. I could see it probably taking or having a bit of a drop off because it's just not as easy to move around as it used to be. But yeah, basically anything that is taller than it, you're not really going to be moving over anymore, which is basically everything taller than a barricade. I think,
So it's following silhouette rules.
yes, it
Or,
basically
sorry, small trooper
follows
silhouette
small
rules.
trooper silhouette rules,
except
to
that
be
it cannot
specific.
climb or anything
Except
like that.
that because it's, yeah, and you know, that is another thing that I picked up on as I was doing another playthrough with the CRB, was that I do feel like there is a decent number of things that now all act like each other, because the bomb card is a notched base thing, and notch based things, generally speaking, cannot climb, within a few exceptions. And it's the same thing with like cover from vehicles, right? You don't have to remember walking versus treaded and all that stuff. It's just like, no, vehicles give heavy cover. You know, troopers,
I'm 100% behind this.
These
I
vehicles block
remember-
LOS now too.
Yeah, I remember when I played this the first time with Evan. I think we were doing a stream, and I was like, oh, I gotta go around this building. And I'm like, I set things up because I thought Evan was gonna have to go around buildings in order to get his cart over there. And he's like, nah, dog, I could just fly right over it. And I'm like, that makes
Yeah.
no sense. What? And
Right.
yeah, so I'm fine with this, and I hate that objective anyways. So
So, so it, I have an opinion on this.
yeah.
I'm going to try and be sort of reserved with my opinions today because I know that we have a lot to get to. But specifically with payload, just as someone like if I'm planning to go to a tournament, personally, I'm not going to bring payload, even if I have a list that is notional like quote good at payload, like Blizzard Force, simply because the chance that you run up to a table where there's like some weird wall or something on your side of the table that like means that you just can't get your payload, you know, within range 2 of some terrain piece that your opponent
Or
puts
you
on the
have
other
to
side
do
of
a
the
big
table.
old Z to get to your side.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
Yeah.
just like the risk is too high, I guess I should say,
Hugely
because
punishing.
like
I guess you can still axe it, you know, during your battlefield.
but if you're a blue
phase.
player and it's in yours, then red has pretty good control of what objective
Yeah.
you land on.
yeah, and
Alright.
it's not like, I mean, it's similar enough to other stuff as far as strengths and weaknesses are concerned, like KP, that it's probably enough to be like, I'm going to just bring KP and not have to worry about whether
That's
my
fair.
table has a giant wall on it or not.
Mhm.
So yeah, I get that it's like more, it makes a little more sense from an immersion perspective.
Mhm.
Personally, as someone going to a tournament, this like kills the payload objective for me. But
Yeah,
Alright.
I can see from the perspective of like, you know, and like as a tournament person, you're looking at the 9-round perspective, right?
yeah,
And I get it. From the 9-round perspective, you're always trying to eliminate variance. And that makes total sense to me, for sure.
all right.
I'd like to point one thing out real quick, I swear. Under terrain, that barricades are specifically called out as difficult terrain, which was something we were wondering about when we were, you know, when all the tweets and, you know, the teases were coming out. This was something we thought we didn't understand, and now they've spelled it out directly as difficult terrain. So it's something to
Yeah.
keep in mind for everyone. at
Barricades
home.
got their own little snippet on the bottom
Yep.
right of page 11 if you're looking for that. our
Yep, it's a
dear
little in the blue
listeners.
box. Yep.
There's also a lot of great like sort of common sense, this is how people were doing it anyway kind of changes. There's the segmenting terrain thing, which
Mhm.
basically says explicitly now that you can define terrain differently even if it's physically connected. And then there's the movement tool thing, where at least small base trooper minis don't have to actually move along the template anymore. They just kind of
That
teleport
is
to
a
the end of
very
it,
good one.
which is great. That's how people thought you should be doing it anyway. So
Yeah, and there's even more movement related freedom, I guess I should say, freedoms that they've gained, such as being able to go off the table a little bit.
yep, great for speeders.
I mean, it's great for speeders. I know Blizzard wins again. Sure, bring it up all you
So
want.
is the not crashing thing. Speeders can't crash anymore, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
But I really, it again, like for me, like it honestly harkens back more to like, Jay, wasn't it your game on stream where we had that talk about being able to move off just a little bit and then back on with a Gav? Wasn't that your game?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, again, like, yeah, sure. A unit that we already know is good gets better in the process. Whatever. That can be fixed with the points adjustment or something else later. I think for all the other things it makes better that like the people that are not trying to win worlds are liking to play. I'm happy that changed for them, for those people, because
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, it makes that experience better, which is great.
I agree. And listen, I'm gonna be different on this, I guess, than Kyle and John in some of these areas, just because I have a different point of view on things. But yeah, being a Gav and ATST player, I hate board edges. I hate them with a red hot passion. And so this is a nice thing for vehicles. It gives you some options. You don't get stuck. In LJ's specifically talking about two things came up with that was the range one deployment. I couldn't get the Gav tank deployed, so that rule got changed from that stream. And then this was the other thing where, because of that, I was trying to figure out how I was going to get my Gav tank into play, and I couldn't go off the table's edge in order to move it so that it could reposition and get into a lane that it could move. And so listen, I think it's good from just a playability standpoint, and it kind of, sure, like LJ said, I think it probably does break some other stuff, but it definitely helps things too. So that's where I'm at.
It does mean if you have like a wall or something that bumps all the way up against the table edge, you now have a different way to go around it, even with like random trooper units. Which is probably
Sometimes 90 degrees, pretty hard to line up to go off and back on. I don't think this ruling gives you a lot of, hey, I can move off the edge now. It's for the little things that it's going to change the most, like the Gav tank starting parallel.
Yeah.
Now it
Yeah.
can actually
I don't think
turn
it's
when it
probably
moves.
really not going to come into play that much.
Yeah,
It's
Um,
really hard to
definitely
move
not
off
a,
and
not a
back
go to
on.
play.
and
as
back
a
on.
trooper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about cover and line of sight.
All right.
Let us talk about one of the big ones.
So line of sight is pretty consistent, I think, with what it was previewed as for just reciprocal line of sight using silhouettes. Something that was not in the preview article but makes sense is that repulsor vehicles, their silhouette starts from the bottom of the hull and goes to the top of the hull, so the peg doesn't count.
Of the hull too, so no handlebars.
No handlebars, yeah. So it's actually like for speeder bikes, it's like a really tiny,
tiny.
skinny to get disc.
It's a little Toledo.
Yeah, and same for the T47. The T47 has a really narrow cylinder, which I think is probably good when we get to cover. Do you want to talk about cover real quick, LJ? Because this is one I think that I know there was a forum post on today, and it maybe doesn't read exactly like people think it does in the cover rules. So do you want to just go over like basically how cover works?
Yeah, so I think what was throwing people off was the way that the preview article was worded, kind of led people to believe that you picked one point on the attacker and of the attacker's silhouette, and we've talked a lot about silhouette, so I won't start there from the beginning, and looked at all points of the defenders. And so you could kind of like look and see what was the most advantageous for you and go with that to try to still scope things out of cover like you used to. But it's actually even simpler than that. It's just the whole silhouette to the whole silhouette. You create a cone of sadness to your target. And if you can see if cover is blocking them on that cone, they have cover. And so one of the things I noticed when I was actually playing was that kind of sped things up a little bit for me, because you would just look and you'd be like, oh, they're blocked by that object. They're probably going to have cover. On top of that, there is still some of the usual stipulations. We did see an addition from the preview article that was not there before. units that are completely blocked are considered to be obscured by the terrain that is blocking them. I actually want to point out a point of that verbiage that's important. They count as obscured by the terrain that is blocking them. So they just count as obscured by whatever that thing is. So if you're obscured by something that is light, before, if you were completely blocked, you would count as having heavy cover. That is not necessarily the case anymore, though a lot of the things that would provide heavy are probably the things that are going to fully block you anyway. So anyway, yeah, so you do the whole check to the whole check. If any part is obscured, then that miniature is considered to have cover. Repeat the process for the rest of the unit. 50%, they have that cover that they were obscured by. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. It's kind of a minor change, but it used to be essentially that like you would round up if there was half in light and half in heavy. Now I think you essentially round down. You need more minis in heavy than you have in light. That's like a minor thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just that it's essentially every part of the attacker silhouette to every part of the defender silhouette, which I think there's two different ways to think about this in shorthand. The first is simply that like the defender picks the point that you look from, because they're going to pick the most advantageous point, which 99% of the time is going to be on the base of the attacker, because you want to go along the table itself, essentially just draw a line straight along the table. And that's going to be the part that's going to be most likely to be obscured by terrain. The other way to think of it too is that in addition to line of sight being reciprocal, cover is essentially reciprocal. Like the unit leader has to be fully in the open for the defender. The attacking unit leader has to be fully in the open for the defender to also be fully in the open.
Unless the attacker's touching the terrain.
Unless the attacker's touching the terrain. So, Jay, you were talking about ATSTs. The example I think that is most stark about how this affects things is you have a situation kind of like we had for the first month roughly of the game where an ATST was like right next to a barricade but not touching it. Say it's like an inch from said barricade, and then you have trooper units that are, you know, range 2 out from the ATST with no intervening cover except that barricade that's an inch from the ATST's feet. That is now cover, correct, from the barricade?
Not that
Yes.
scenario.
Why
No,
not?
because 50%. Right?
Uh,
We need 50% of the ATST to have
No,
cover.
no,
Obscured
not
to have cover.
no. I'm talking
Oh,
about the
we're
ATST
talking the other way
shooting
around.
the rebel
Yeah.
troopers.
Yeah.
Yes, that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
That
I'm with you on that.
is
how do you feel about that, Jay?
Shit.
I mean,
I don't
the
like that
ATST
one.
is sour
and I
on
think that's
ATST is
stupid.
always going to be the worst example of it. It'll get easier as you use it, but like the ATST is definitely going to be
That
the
is
one
never
that
going to
like
get
doesn't make the
easier
most
as I
sense.
use it. That is bullshit every time I
Well,
use
and
it.
what's-
I'm
You have a
not
blast
happy.
gun, just use it.
What gets
Yeah.
extra weird
Whoever
is you
puts
could
that on?
You should.
you could have a T-47 in the same situation, and that is no cover because the silhouette of the T-47 starts much higher.
Yeah.
You could also have some stormtroopers on a building next to the ATST at knee height of the ATST, and that's a no cover shot because their silhouettes start further high up on the table.
Yeah.
So
I hate it.
I don't know. Like,
Nope.
I'm surprised how many open shots I was actually getting when I was playing against good players anyway.
No.
It was
no,
not
no,
something
no.
that was happening very often.
You are full of crap.
I'm not. This
there are
magical world
scenarios-
where
No.
I always got scopes out in the open with
No.
AATs or ATSTs was like not something that I was encountering in a lot of my games anyway. I mean, I was going to actually ask if you guys thought that terrain density and the way we build tables is going to change because of this change to cover of line of sight.
I mean, we might have to.
I mean,
I don't
know.
like
Is
that,
it?
but
I guess at the end of the day, the question is, do we continue to build as we do now? You know, maybe adding more taller stuff because we can now, without feeling as bad about it, or you know, do you think there is a type or category or density of terrain that starts to go down because we want to feel it out and see if it creates less cover situations than the new rules lead us to believe?
so
I don't know.
I'll say one thing relative to that. This is essentially how Legion was for like a month when it first came out, because they originally just had the center to center line check and the look from the top of a mini to see if they're open or not was like not a part of the terrain. Or sorry, part of the cover rules. They added that step specifically because of the ATST T47 elevated, whatever units being almost next to a barricade, but not quite there kind of situation. And when the game first came out, people were essentially just playing with barricades. And the reason that they made that change is because everybody hated how that worked when they were playing on a table with just barricades.
Well, I think we're going to see an increase in barricades now because they're the only thing that's specifically designated as scatter terrain that's also difficult terrain, right? So I think you're going to see an increase in barricades, which is going to, I think, going to make this a bigger problem. And I hate it.
I mean, yeah. And I'm not saying, I guess, Jay, what I'm saying is there was less terrain. There was very little terrain on the table when the game first started.
Yeah.
And everybody still hated how that worked with the just drawing lines across the table.
Yeah.
So I feel like, if the response is, well, maybe we need to change how we do terrain and go back to less terrain. Like we've already been there with a rule that kind of resembled this.
Oh yeah. I gotcha. Yeah.
And it got changed very quickly because, the opinions were not diverse on that matter. Let's put it that way. So
yeah, I think if we get a lot more shots in cover, there's also a lot more potential to negate that, I think, than existed before. Critical and blast and sharpshooter and whatnot, definitely more prevalent than it could have been if the rules continued as they were at the time. So I think, as with anything, we're just gonna have to feel it out and see how it actually plays. I don't disagree that, especially like when you look at it from the ATST's point of view,
which is how I always look at it.
Which is the way to look at it, because that's going to be the most extreme point of view.
Yeah.
Is definitely not a favorable one. But is it actually making much more of a difference than before? Like I said,
to an ATST? Stop your propaganda right now.
I was not getting free open shots. I don't know what yokels you're playing against up there, Jay.
With an ATST, you always get free open shots.
Yeah,
have
that's
you
the
lost
point
your
of
mind?
an ATST.
Yeah, dude, I'm not letting you do this. This is bullcrap. You just took the value of the ATST and it was low before, and you just plunged it into the. You're the
well, don't say me. I didn't write
it. Get on. Oh, but you proofread it. It says right here in the beginning.
Well, so the ATST can move on top of stuff now too, right?
Well, it could always do that,
but a lot taller, right? Isn't it up to silhouette now?
A little taller. But yes,
a little taller.
I don't
think it's going to be that different.
I want to kind of divorce this conversation from ATSTs a little bit, because I think
because Jay's getting real heated,
because they're always going to show the extremes.
They are, but I think there are some very ridiculous examples that you can do too with just trooper units, where like you're like an inch away from the barricade. That barricade is like, covering from the defender's perspective, like a millimeter of the attacking unit leader's base, and that's also cover for the defender. So I think it's going to get potentially weird and abstract with the whole like every to every, because you almost need to like, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if both unit leaders, if both units are on the table, you just use a line laser and you draw them from both sides of the base, and that's it, you're done. So it's definitely potentially faster unless one of the units is elevated. It strikes me as not nearly as...
I will tell you, one of the things I did this week to get ready is I played a couple games where we just looked every single thing up. We didn't, they weren't all 6-round games, but we just played a couple games where we just looked every single thing up in the CRB, and it got real quick, real fast. It was nice. Again, I know stomaching all the changes ain't easy, Jay. It's okay. I still love you.
Listen,
but
man, I like some of these.
I'm glad.
I hate this.
Trust me, I like hearing that, and they're not all going to be hits. It's okay. I get it. I like that. Yes, it does get quicker in practice because it's usually very obvious.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that it showcased really quickly for me was how nice the reciprocal part was. Because
No,
you could immediately establishing the reciprocal shots. That's it underlined and
I'm fine
underscored
with
like
that.
that's in the game
that's
to
a
me, which was
totally
nice.
separate thing.
Yeah, yeah. Stop trying to move off topic. We like that one. That one's fine.
Well, and as far as they're all not going to be hits, I would think that the thing that you do the most in the game you'd want to be hit. But
Yeah,
anyway,
call them crazy.
Yeah.
All right.
There's another positive related change there.
Okay.
No slingshotting,
Yeah.
meaning you
Yeah.
can't
That's great.
bring your unit leader and then throw your other units past so they can actually see. Your unit leader also has to be able to see the defender for it to
Yep.
be a legal attack.
That's
Yes.
another, like, most people were doing it that way anyway, kind of
Oh, yeah.
common sense, obvious, definitely should be a change kind of thing. For
I
sure.
do like that one.
Especially with the new wound allocation rules, because otherwise you'd be able to corner peek with any heavy model.
Yeah, it forces
you
you
at
to
least
be
need to
taking at least 2 wounds at a
Right.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In
let's
that
talk about
scenario.
that real quick. I guess we already talked about this one on the
Yeah,
podcast
we
before,
talked about
right?
that
So
one.
yeah, everybody gets that. But the thing is, yeah, you have to have the big thing was you couldn't just have your heavy out of cover and the rest of your unit and it can't shoot because the unit leader has to have line of sight as well, right? So
Yeah.
Correct.
yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah. What else we
Some
want
would
to
say
talk about?
related.
Okay, let's see what else we got in here.
Do you guys just hate Jedis over there?
Only
Just
ones
wa-
that have deflect, John.
Just
What do you
wondering.
mean, you people?
I mean, you people.
Just the ones with deflect.
So, it makes me
Uh,
so sad. No
It was
deflect,
the-
no surge block in melee.
It was
From
the
spending a
grievous buff
dodge.
that nobody saw coming.
Yeah, this is the block
The
buff.
Grievous, Callus, and who else has block buff? But not only that, just a Vader buff, a third Vader buff, because Reliable 2 doesn't care.
Well,
Oh,
it's still a nerf. It's just he's less nerfed than the other ones with deflect.
yeah.
I'm actually
He has an out.
I liked listen, I liked the deflect rule before, but I mean, if we're thinking about it from a like making sense standpoint, like it never really made sense.
Right. This I honestly I can't speak to the reason for the change. Again,
It's 'cause
mostly
they
because
hate
I'm
Luke.
not the developer. I don't do those things.
Mm,
But I will definitely agree with you there, Jay. It's like I don't know if deflect really ever should have worked in melee. We just got used to it because that's how it's worked for
Well,
I
5
mean,
years.
because
It
think
makes
about
sense. It
An
makes sense for
expensive
balance
unit.
reasons. You have a
Yes, for
super expensive
balance.
unit where dodge tokens are really important. They get a little bit of an extra defensive buff
Yeah.
from spending a dodge. For balance reasons, it makes sense. You know,
yeah, but yes, sure.
and then they could never wound units in melee with deflect.
Right.
So
To
mean,
the special ones like Gemso.
yeah, but those were specifically like Anakin's a
Right.
good duelist, so he's going to
Right.
turn your hit back on you or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I don't know.
I think that one comes out to a net neutral at the end of the day. I don't know if it'll actually destroy as much as John thinks it will. And I will
My
go to
Luke's
bat.
already rolling blanks. Now his
Yeah. Well,
surges are
see,
gonna
so
be
what
blanks.
you're saying is it never mattered anyway because you only rolled blanks. Noted.
Not noted.
John's just mad.
Take
at
jump
his
away from
dice.
me, take deflect away from me. Man,
I mean, technically, they didn't take jump away.
they took
It
it
still
away.
got so much-
It
still
They,
still
so
does
they
the
gave
same
that
thing.
toy to
for it.
everyone now.
It still does the same.
Everyone's got jump now.
It does. So it does do literally the same thing as it did before.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
does. You
Well, I
can-
think where the difference is going to come, and this goes
The
back to
relative
table
difference.
building, is I think the impassable terrain stuff, right? If that is something where we're really going to implement that on tables, then I think its value goes up.
Right. No, I think again that's why I waffled on what I was gonna do, but that's why I settled on it as like the thing to bring up at the beginning. Learning how to speak that language and speak it fluently, I think is gonna be extremely important. And there were certain units that you probably advocated for terrain to work a specific way when you had the turn 0 table discussion with your opponent. And this is something that if it wasn't already in that category, it's definitely in the category now. I mean, if you were a jump player, you definitely made sure it was very clear what things could jump over. And now there's additional incentive to add that variety to the table, I think, which is cool. I like that.
Everything's impassable, I declare.
Noted. I will just have a judge follow you around all your games and be like, "Yeah, no, John's right.
Impassable.
He's right again. This is weird. It keeps happening."
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can
I've
I-
never
speaking
seen
of,
an
can I-
impassable,
Square building,
barricade.
impassable. I don't know what
Yep.
to tell you.
Are we allowed to shout counselor instead of judge? Because that is way cooler.
I mean, I did mention that earlier. I think people
Okay.
should say it because I think it'd be cool.
Okay.
I think somebody had mentioned this in another chat I had today too, where in a crowded convention hall with a lot of other games going on, nobody's yelling consular out into the crowd.
That's
Yeah.
So, I don't think it'll cut through the crowd the same that somebody yelling judge
no.
does.
But you gotta
judge
yell
is-
3 syllables.
Yeah, could
Yes,
you imagine
consular.
like saying that word
Right.
while you're angry?
And I-
Like,
I- is- How do you-
somebody.
I feel like we should learn how to say it in like German because German always sounds angrier.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna look that up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope-
Here's something I'd like to talk about that I think is really important that I think a lot of people are going to pass up is I think Tauntauns and Dewbacks maybe got a little boost with being able to do Relentless before they move.
That's gonna be a typo.
I'm actually interested in that one.
It's
I'm
withdraw.
not going to speak to that one just now because
Before
I
or
don't
after a withdraw move.
I don't
They
don't
get to do
remember
Relentless.
I don't remember what it was supposed to be. So I don't want to mislead you on that one. I'll say for
Doing
now,
relentless.
read the rule
though.
book. We'll see what happens by Friday.
So
Doing relentless means doing an attack after your move, though.
Yeah,
So-
but
Yeah,
it specifically
and
says
that's why I think it's not actually
I don't
gonna.
think it
here's
holds up.
why it holds up.
Oh, wait,
If you-
no.
if you-
Here's why it doesn't hold up.
Heyo.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Is it
It's already in the
written
forum.
somewhere? Is there a
It's
forums
already
correction?
up there. It's already up there.
It's on the forums.
Yeah. It's it was one of the first ones we got to, which is why I forgot about it because Andrew actually was the one who
So that's a
answered that
misprint.
question. There were it's one of the things that you'll probably see an edit to that by Friday.
How they got nerfed though, Jay, is they can't withdraw into another unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Generally speaking,
That's
I'm
pretty common sense.
cool with that across the
Yeah.
board. So
Common sense. They were already hurting.
Yeah. Well,
That's
how much
fine.
more do you want to do to creature troopers? Poor creatures.
No
well,
objective play, no
That's fine. They know what they did.
cover.
All right,
we
okay.
could change RAM so it doesn't change the crits anymore.
Sure, do that.
Any other ideas, Jay?
I
Yeah,
got
make them blanks.
here's something really positive that I think is probably the thing I am the most happy about in all the changes that have been made to the rule books. Are you ready?
Hit me.
The Ewok affiliation symbol has been added in.
I was
And-
really happy that made it in, just to give people a little tease.
And also a little what was it? Incognito token.
With the little Ewok on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
man. They're gonna be hiding in bushes. Incognito. I
why
can't wait.
Why are the trees speaking?
Sorry.
Yes. It's gonna
Sorry,
be great.
sorry. That one I was really
John, it is the before here is referring to pivots granted by the reposition keyword. Since relentless triggers after a move, the creature trooper must first complete the withdraw before performing any free attack action granted by relentless.
Right. The reason why I read it differently was because the wording says that they perform the free actions from
Yes.
the relentless
No,
keyword.
it's a reason why it was like question number 5 today. It came up very early, so
good.
no, I don't blame you at all for seeing that
Mhm.
and thinking that.
Let's talk about, I guess, scale. Since we were on jump, we might as well
Sure.
cover scale as well.
Yeah, I mean, John, you had a real bone to pick with jump, but I'm
Scales even
surprised.
worse.
Scales seem to get hit a little harder, in my
I think Scale got
opinion.
like
Scales.
actively nerfed, basically,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
Good.
Like, not only is it worse relative to everyone else having jump, it's like just straight worse.
Worse than it was.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
I don't listen. Good.
As someone that
I've
enjoyed
played John
Wookiees,
enough with the Wookiees against his Wookiees that needed to go. That was
No.
some bullshit. That was.
Been in timeout for like 6 months now. How much longer?
all right. Um,
So
you know what?
scale just gets you ignore difficult terrain and you can climb height 2, I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
Yeah,
You could do
and,
your short move up to height 2.
you know, they ignore difficult terrain. Always good. Never.
Sure.
You know,
If that got taken from Wookiees,
right.
would-
That you
Well,
know.
hold on. When they, yeah, right, yeah.
It's just
it is-
expert climber plus
and unhindered.
Height
Unhindered.
two
environmental
climb.
gear, basically now, right? Is that the short?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can I ask a couple questions that are essentially like outstanding forum questions? Are you allowed to answer these?
If they're in the forum, no, probably not live on air. I mean, what, you guys still get a release on your usual day with
Yeah.
this?
Tomorrow.
It'll go tomorrow.
If it's tomorrow, there's a chance it might get hit before, but
Okay.
you know, no, that might have to wait.
All right.
So I have one on behalf of my old co-host from the Fifth Trooper podcast that he was pretty upset with. A unit being transported in a closed transport gains a suppressed token that suffers 1 wound when the transportation is defeated. Then flip any order tokens that unit has face down or assign it a face down order token if it does not have any. That is
my
did
favorite.
Vader Lat really need a nerf?
Yes.
One of my favorite memes from it's not Community, but it's Donald Glover from his stand-up where he grabs the microphone. He says, "Good, good."
That's great. I love that change. I love
Yeah.
everything about that one.
I'm glad you like that, Kyle, because honestly, like
This is always stupid.
I hate the transports being able to dump their cargo with no
They're expensive.
negative.
They're
I mean, they're-
expensive to just
No,
be
negative?
transporting.
They suck. That's the negative.
Yeah. And
I-
it's a unit that sucks.
Right.
Being-
and you have to
being
pay
able
a
to
ton of
throw,
money for. Like that was
being
the
Yeah.
only
able to throw a
positive it had.
cheap,
Yeah.
what's it called? Cheap bus on the table and do that. I think that sounds.
That's like
super
throwing away
overblown.
2 strike teams though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like that it was actively bad to want to try and kill a unit.
Right.
Like-
I mean, you never want to encourage that kind of thing. And look,
Yeah.
if the transport generally gets worse because of it, then that's fine. In a couple
What?
months after Worlds or whatever, just adjust the points to compensate.
You
Like
have to do more
it's
than
not
a
like
points
a-
adjustment.
it's not a one-step process. Like you just there will probably be some sort of adjustment later once we see what gets taken, what doesn't
Sure.
after the next couple months.
I mean, okay. I guess the problem is we don't know what potentially is coming in the future, but as of right now, there was no real broken mechanic in that was affecting the game, whether or not Kyle hated it because it made sense. it like, come on, like that delivery system, it was perfect, and perfect in every way, perfectly balanced,
In
and you broke it.
Every way.
Yeah.
We will rebuild.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys like using lats because they're worthless now.
I never even took mine out of the box. I still
Yeah.
haven't.
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the lat had so many problems to begin with. This was not
Yeah.
the final nail in the coffin for the lat.
No,
Let's
it
be
was.
honest.
It was. I'll have you know that Evan was going to bring Vader Lat to Worlds, and you ruined his little raccoony dreams.
I want him to bring swoops and buses and bring his furry road back out.
Well, he's not bringing the buses now.
Yeah, and the swoops didn't get the buff to overrun that they were kind of expecting.
No, but they did benefit from a lot of the other speeder stuff that we mentioned earlier. So
I
I think
guess.
there was, if anything, it's a net, neutral for them.
Yeah.
But Evan will run what he wants to because he's Evan.
That's true.
And
And he'll
he'll
still be
win.
good with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
he'll
they'll
go
still be
top
fine
4.
with it.
Yeah.
Come on.
I can't think of any. Can you guys think of any other like? I mean, there's minor stuff like that you
Pressing.
can't covert ops without a commander anymore.
Mm.
But I can't think of any other like super high
Oh,
level stuff.
I don't know
exemplar.
if I would call it super. Exemplars, yeah,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
standby
more
sharing of
standby sharing.
exemplar. Sure,
Yeah,
that deserves a higher place than cumbersome, which is what I was about to mention.
yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, cumbersome is an interesting one, but let's talk about exemplar really quick. So basically the any of the cool clone things that they had going for them with the saber tank and Padme and standby, that's kind of gone now. I don't think it kills them. I think there's a bunch of really good lists still with, well, there's like 2 good lists with clones, and then but
I actually think clones have some of the with the I think they're hurt the least aside from Empire by the most of the rule changes.
yeah, I
So,
would agree with that. Yeah, I mean the ones that really touch them are exemplar and fire support.
yeah,
right?
exemplar definitely hurts.
God, don't say that on the Facebook group. Jesus,
But
they personally kicked their dogs today.
yeah. So as a person that loves Republic, and I have openly said that they're my favorite faction to play,
Yep,
um,
confirmed.
I actually think that this is fine with a condition, and that is that Padme needs to be like 70 points. Because I recognize that standby sharing is not a fun mechanic. It in some ways you could argue was kind of like propping up Republic in a way that was not healthy for the internal balance of the faction. So I can see this. Like, I get it. I get why the change was made. For me to personally want to take Padme now, I'd want her to be like 70 points, because what she does now is really not, I mean, she has better command cards, but is really not that different than like a Pike Capo.
Did
but-
she ever factor into your mind for secret mission related reasons, or was it primarily exemplar?
I think I've had one game in all my Anakin Padme games where the secret mission thing, where I scored it, and it was a game where it essentially didn't matter because I was like, it was such a one-sided game that I also scored R2 secret mission, and I also got like both hostages. So it was kind of like well, I might as well score secret mission with Padme because she doesn't have anything better to do. I've never had it like make the difference in a close game, if that's what you're asking.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm
generally curious to see how much that actually came into play for you.
Yeah, it's too, for her specifically, it's just a little bit too cumbersome to rely on.
Cumbersome? What a segue.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it.
I did it.
Wasn't gonna say it.
I saw it in your eyes. Yeah, so big upgrade to, I do have another one after this I want to talk about, but big upgrade to cumbersome is that you know, before you couldn't move at all and fire a cumbersome weapon, and now you can fire it and then move. So that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It doesn't change cumbersome weapons in any negative way. It's
helped
not
them a ton.
It's not unlimited freedom, and you know, I don't know how you feel about this, but I know that like for the emplacement weapons, I feel like it helps them less because I don't see them shooting and moving as much as like a Cassian. You know, for him, like he's one where like I saw that change and I was like, yes, he's gonna like this one. Versus, like I said, like emplacement troopers. I don't know if you'll be doing those moves with the, you know, with the mortar as much as you would be with like some of the cumbersome trooper weapons.
I mean, maybe now with its silhouette being like Godzilla size, but
yeah, because you're not going to hide it anyway on that move.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see this being great for like the RPS, the clone trooper RPS.
RPS definitely seems like a winner in that for sure.
Which is something that you take already as like a one of. So
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and with the new suppressive rules, right? That really, I think, suppression rules, that helps too. Right? Is that the suppressive? That's the suppressive.
No, that's the
weapon.
clone, the phase 2 mortar.
Oh, right,
it's the suppressive one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that one too, maybe. That's something that like nobody takes. So
all right. So this one I found, so you cannot start the game with a unit touching an objective token.
Oh, yes.
So
yes, I've answered a couple questions on that today, I feel like.
Yeah, I think, you know, the great thing for Empire snipers was that they had the Scout 3 and yeah. Yeah. Now it's okay, but the whole point of that was to get up to objectives. And now, I mean, you get close to them, I guess.
Yeah.
No K2 or Jin sitting on the middle box
Infiltrate.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even though I've done it many times, I think I'm okay with the center box play going away. It's not the best game
Sure.
play to encourage?
I wonder if
question
you
mark?
could have done that through an infiltrate wording
Through a
versus
change to infiltrate,
yeah,
yeah.
versus
Instead of like
all
scout
together.
moves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always feel like, at least as someone that has played a lot of Iden and other infiltrate units, I've never felt like that play was ever really a very good idea anyway.
Right.
Like you're kind of asking to get blasted by something, and I
Mhm.
think it's pretty unusual to like be able to be safe with one move after grabbing a box on the first turn. But you know, I see where this is coming from. It's something that we're like, you could essentially lose a game, like if you don't know what's coming and there's some weird terrain pierce
Yeah.
near the middle and you end up playing recover against Iden.
Yeah.
It's one of those new player feels bads that like I think competitive players weren't proactively doing all that much anyway. At least with infiltrate, the scout 3 thing is another matter.
Yeah.
But
I think I saw it when I was playing the Cassian K2, like there's a couple where somebody put their VAP in like a spot where it's going to take them a little bit to get to it. And I was just like, oh, I'll just infiltrate on it and hit it. You know what I mean? And so like stuff like that. I don't know. I think that wording could have been tied to infiltrate first, because I think that's who it was targeting. It wasn't really targeting scout.
yeah, probably. All right.
All right.
You guys got anything else?
I'm sure
There's
we'll talk
always
more.
something.
Yeah, we'll cover more next week when they revise this booklet 3 times by then.
I have
Eh.
it occurred today. Bunch of questions, and it's like posted on the rules forum, and then I went on the rules forum and I'm like, I don't even have an account on the rules forum. So I've made my first 2 ever forums rules post questions. So I'm sure that those will be answered before we we record next time.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah.
should be.
Yeah.
I know one of the other things we wanted to do today was just kind of see what the most common threads that were coming up
Yeah.
were and
Yeah.
see like, that's the kind of thing that might trigger a wording change even if something works as intended, but came up with a lot of questions. And then there were a couple ones that were, that we talked about that were genuinely things that needed to be looked at, ranged being added back into Gunslinger, and there were a couple small things, but like I said, I was pleasantly surprised that it took like 2.5 hours for something like that to actually be found. With how people were digging into that, that was a kind of actually a good feeling, believe it or not.
Yeah, some of us were stuck working.
Jumps.
I know.
No, I think that the other thing that I know I want to do on the forum side is a lot of these questions that are answered that were essentially like, yep, that's how the rule works kind of answers. You will probably see some of those maybe go away by the weekend, just so the forum can kind of stay tight over the next couple of weeks. We were at a little around 2,500 posts by the time we did the archive yesterday / this morning. And that is definitely something that we're gonna take into account, or that I'm gonna take into account as I'm moderating it. I think we'll probably see less things will stay on there that are read the rulebook type things. And that'll hopefully make it easier for people to navigate.
So let me ask you
Always-
this real quick.
Yes, Jay.
If
you
there
have to
was
ask.
if there was rulings that would still apply to the rules today that you've archived, are those available? Are those still available as rules for tournaments, or no? They're no longer available.
So there are 2 intro posts that Andrew did when the forum went live this morning, and in bold and underlined it says all rulings on the old forum should be considered invalid. If it is not on this forum, it is not a ruling.
So do we have to ask our Yoda Chewy questions again
You will.
to get them official?
Now, will they work the exact same?
Oh, you're kidding me.
Probably.
Okay. Don't do
Um,
this to me. Don't kill them
however,
too.
Vader's might.
that's well, there was a Vader's Might one that
I
already
know, I
came
saw.
up today that was changed. But that is one of the
Changed?
things. There is a bit of an opportunity to do a course correction from things that
boy.
were inconsistent, and they were only inconsistent because a forum ruling said it was one way, and the core rules read very differently. And so there are a couple opportunities to fix some of those things with this change. And I believe that's one of the reasons why, it's an archive and not a straight deletion. Because it's very easy to move those posts out of retirement. So I believe like the size matters, stuff that you're mentioning right now, John. That's totally an example of one that I could see us by the weekend bringing out of retirement instead of having somebody re-ask, because it'd be easier to just
I'll
use
re-ask
that old
right now.
post. I mean, hey, you can. I encourage everybody to do it and to be familiar with and use the forum, because it is an official document that supersedes the core rulebook. And people should know how to use it. That's what I was going to mention before we went on this little tangent, because I know that not everybody uses it or is fluent in it,
Or knows
and
it exists.
or even knows that exists. Yes. And I recommend that as we go into the core rulebook era, that you crack that thing open and take a look at it every once in a while, and that you use the search function, and more specifically that you click search and you go to search by tags, because that is how I personally find rulings super quick. Because, for example, if you go to search bar and you type in force push, you will get every single forum entry across all 4 games that has anything to do with force, which is a term in all the Star Wars games, and push, which is definitely a term in MCP and also in Legion. Whereas if you go to search by tags and type in force push, you'll get like 20 posts at most. And it will make it a lot easier for you to find your stuff. Learning how to search by tags is a huge part of using that forum. And I don't remember where all this stuff is. I know people joke about, like, it seems like I do, and that I've got a memory for it. I really don't. I just know how to use the search function better than most. And so I do want to encourage people, now that we're in kind of this new era of core rulebook, to maybe try to use it a little more often than you did before, even if you're playing in a more casual setting. Not everybody can benefit from this unless they know that it exists. So
Yeah.
please use it.
One of the things I would recommend too to most people, because this happens a lot up here, is that when local game stores set up tournaments, that when they put their document together, they don't use the forums as an official, like, hey, here's the official ruling, and that on countless occasions has caused some sort of issue where someone's like, that's not in the rules, and then the other guy's like, no, it's in the forums, and they're like, what the hell are the forums? And and then you have to explain to them that it's an official ruling, and they're like, where does it say that? And it's like, so yeah. So for those of you who are listening, highly encourage, if your local source putting on an event, that they should be linking to the forums as well as rules that they'll be upholding, because like LJ just said, it supersedes the what are you calling it, the CRB in some,
The core rules book, yeah, the CRB.
I'll
even
link
though
it to
its
mine
rule
right
book is
now.
one word, but sure, we'll call it the CRB.
They don't always have to make sense. I think the CB doesn't sound as good as the CRB. Just saying.
It doesn't.
Wouldn't it just be the
It's
CR?
just CR, yeah.
No, the
Which
CR
is continuing
doesn't sound.
resolution.
It doesn't sound as good either. Sorry, CR, not CB. That's true. I don't know why my brain just decided to get rid of the middle letter.
I like RRG.
RRG had a good flow to it. I did like the RRG.
But all right.
But relationship with RRG is over. CRB is my new friend.
Gamers hate change and things to not change, right?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you guys were able to have me on to talk about it a little bit. It's been an experience, and there's a lot of little things I've been able to be involved in over the last couple of years. The articles, the the forums, the tournaments, you know, the proofreading now. And it's really cool because you get to see kind of the passion on both sides. You get to see the passion from the people that make the thing and the passion from the players and the people that enjoy the product that's made at the end of the day. And, you know, it's a really cool space to be in. I got a lot of messages this morning before the rule book had even come out. And some of it was LVO business, some of it was other things. And I would say a good 80% of it was all like, hey, good luck today. We know it's going to be busy. And it was really cool. You know, it's things like that that remind me why the Legion community is the Legion community and why you guys are the best. And there's a lot to look forward to. There's so many units and so many things coming out in the future that are going to be
There's
pretty
only
cool.
one that's the most to look forward to, and that's Ewoks. And who
was gonna
cares
say,
about anything else?
Do you know how much time I've already spent looking up quotes to use for the beginning of those articles?
They're all gonna be like nyub nyub.
I
Yeah.
want to get the song that the Ewok sings while they're cooking up the rebels.
Yeah.
I want to find the words for that and use that as the quote for one of them. I'm
Yep.
just, so excited. So
Me too.
I hope I hope you guys are at the end of the day. I hope you're excited for what comes next. Community out there, I hope you guys are excited for what comes next. And you know, LVO is going to be a party. World's going to be a party. There's a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to here in the next couple months.
Gonna be good.
I'm very excited to see everybody.
Yes, that's always the best part when you get to see everybody in person. So much animosity just melts away when you get to sit down and have a beer.
Oh,
with
not
somebody.
from me.
It's
I get more mad.
Oh, that's true. Sometimes,
Shades the heel.
Can confirm.
Yeah, when I see people, I'm like, oh man, I was doing okay when I didn't have to see you.
And that's just with your 5th trooper staff.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
just internal staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure that you know, people will be seeing a lot of you over the next few days on the forums.
Yep.
And of course, over the next few months, as you're being part of the 2 biggest tournaments probably of the year, so which are both occurring almost back to back. So
Yep. I'm very excited. It's gonna be a good couple months, and
Yep.
I'm sure we'll enjoy it.
all right. We are the Notorious Scoundrels of Kyle.
Jay.
John Bushfax Bushman.
And I was
Mhm.
LJ.
And you were LJ. Yep. Still LJ. Stay fresh, cheese bags.